The worst thing about affirmative action is that it created a Clarence Thomas who benefited from the program and now is in a position where he's going to deny many young African-American talented individuals an opportunity. Historically, the problem has been that institutions of higher learning, corporations, companies, and other entities have denied well-qualified African-Americans and other individuals access in terms of admissions, employment, because of their race.
As Derek Johnson from the NAACP there weighing in on MSNBC again as they put out a statement, and then weighing in there on air, on television this morning after the Supreme Court handed down that ruling, finding that UNC and Harvard violated the 14th Amendment, essentially removing affirmative action from schools in the admission process, that they can no longer use race within the admission process.
And we've heard members from the NAACP speak out against this ruling. However, there are some folks celebrating this decision, saying it has been years calling for this to be changed, to give everyone essentially a average and similar playing field, including Kenny Zhu. He's the president of Colorist United and a plaintiff in the SCOTUS case of the North Carolina affirmative action. Also, Jordan Sekulow is the executive director of the American Center for Law and Justice. And
that's not Jordan.
That's not Jordan. Apologies on that, sir. If you could stand by with us. And T.W. Shannon is here as well. Kenny, if I could go to you first, just talk to me through what you've read so far in the rulings that has stood out to you when it comes to this decision to end affirmative action in college admissions.
The ruling that stands out to me is that they finally concluded that what Harvard was doing with the personality score against Asian Americans is discrimination. What they did was they stereotyped Asian American personalities as low. They classified them as test-taking robots with no personality. That they used that as the justification to, even with the higher scores and grades, discriminate against Asian Americans and reject them from their college. So the court correctly concluded that that is racial stereotyping, that is racism, and they pinged Harvard for that.
Kenny, I wanted to know your response specifically when you hear the NAACP speaking out, and it's fiery. I mean, people are really divided. They're upset about this decision. Obviously, there are those in support of it, but obviously with your background, I mean, essentially, you know, you and other Asian Americans behind this, this would be a win. Can you comment on that and what you're seeing for those that are pushing back and are very upset about rolling back affirmative action within colleges and universities? What do you say to them?
I would say I would be sympathetic with them. You know, Black Americans have not been achieving at this country the way that we hoped they would in the 1960s and 70s. Their PISA scores are far below whites and Asians. We need to work on the K-12 education system. We need to solve that problem right now. We can't do it at the college level, and especially not through Harvard. Are you kidding me? Harvard's supposed to be for the best and the brightest, not for people who really need help.
All right. Really interesting. Again, I know your book, The Inconvenient Minority, essentially leading up to what ultimately came forward today. Again, Asian Americans arguing they were discriminated against when it comes to these application purposes. Also wanted to welcome in Jared Roberts, constitutional attorney with the Banal Law Group. So, Jared, when you look at this from a legal ruling here, talk to me about what this means for the future of college admissions, because there's been a lot of people assuming automatically so that this will mean less Black individuals and less Latino individuals will be admitted into these colleges. What's your read on that?
So my read on this is that the Supreme Court has really, since the new justices that Donald Trump put on, has emphasized that we need to go back to the text of the Constitution. And the 14th Amendment says that you're not allowed to discriminate on the basis of race. Now, there have been certain tests that the Supreme Court has implemented over the years, and in the past, colleges have gotten away with these affirmative action policies based on courts saying that it passes tests such as strict scrutiny. And here, the Supreme Court is now basically saying that these programs don't meet strict scrutiny. It's the highest level of any test that wherein a government actor can discriminate based on some sort of classification. And here you saw the court basically saying that there's no clear endpoint for when student bodies would be sufficiently diverse, and that whereas they could stop using racial preferences, and that you can't use race to disadvantage other members, people of a different race. And because college admissions is basically a zero sum, there are limited spots, preferencing one race necessarily will disadvantage another race. And so it simply didn't meet the strict scrutiny burden. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled down today.
All right, really quickly, T.W. Shannon, final thoughts.
Well, the court got it right. Racism does not fix racism. At the end of the day, you have folks like the NAACP, who are the most duplicitous organization around. They're talking out of both sides of the neck. They're saying, on one hand, African Americans can't achieve without affirmative action. But at the same time, they're saying that the people who benefit from affirmative action are qualified. We need to judge people based upon the content of their character, based upon their contribution, and based upon their talent, not based upon their race. That's exactly what we're moving toward with this decision. There's still more work to be done. We need to open up the admissions process. These institutions, both private and public, receive public dollars. We need to remove the secrecy around admissions process and make sure that people that are getting in are qualified and they're based upon their merit, not their race.
Yeah, and also diversity of thought. I'll just throw that in there too. We've seen that college campuses tend to lean one way, in one direction, and not include so many different viewpoints. Kenny Xu, Jared Roberts, T.W. Shannon, thank you all so much for joining us today.